journey as a body of believers started back in the 1960s, with a mission to make and mature more followers of Christ.
That mission has never changed, but our vision of how that happens and what it looks like has grown.
We want to be an authentic community of Jesus followers who love and serve people.
Over the past 14 years, as a local church body, we've dreamed big.
We've relied on God's faithfulness, and above all, we've seen lives change through the grace of God.
But the story of New North Church is just beginning. Our hearts are alive with the dream God has ahead, a dream that sees our community continue to be filled with grace, where everyone can be fully known and loved.
To see lives transformed by encounters with the presence of God.
To live Jesus-centered lives filled with humility.
To share the gospel far and wide. To serve our communities, both local and global. To pursue Jesus completely in our daily lives.
God is calling us to dream bigger, to imagine more, to trust Him more.
Join us as we get to the heart of who God is calling New North Church to become.
Heart and soul, living our core values.
Well, hey, good to see all of you. Today, we're finishing our 3-week short series as we've been talking about our vision as a church. And here it is again. Let me just read it one last time. New North Church, that is you, that is me, is an authentic community of Jesus followers who love and serve people. That will be a multiplying collective of 5 churches producing 3,000 disciple makers who reach and influence the San Francisco Peninsula for the glory of Jesus Christ by 2033. All right, if you're getting sick of that statement, that means you're just finally getting it, because I'm getting sick of it. But 2 weeks ago, I zeroed in on the phrase disciple maker, and I talked about what does it mean to be not only a disciple but a disciple maker, and I really talked about how we want to be a church that helps people find Jesus, follow Jesus, and obey Jesus. We want to be a church that makes disciples who then make disciples. And I challenge you, and if you were there, you remember it hopefully, and I just asked a very simple question: who is your disciple? Who is someone that you're pouring your life into? And then last week, on Labor Day weekend, I talked about the importance of what's called church multiplication. And I actually looked at not only God's heart for the Bay Area, but I believe God's strategy to reach the Bay Area. And so we, along with other churches, want to be a multiplying church, a church that goes to where people live, especially here in San Francisco and in San Mateo County on the peninsula. But today I want to do something different. Today I want to share just 2 verses that I really believe that God has not only put on my heart, but 2 verses for our church. I really believe this is a word from God for me and for us, and I don't say that lightly. And so let me just pray for our time, and then I'm going to dive in. Father, we're so grateful to be here, and we invite you now to come and reveal your presence to us this morning. God, we've worshiped you in song. Now we want to dive into your word, because you are a God who is still speaking to your people. So Holy Spirit, come, teach us, encourage us, reveal to us whatever it is you have for each and every one of us. So Lord, now, God, would you give us eyes to see, ears to hear, hearts and minds that are open to whatever it is you want to teach your people. In the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Spirit, amen. That was so weak, you guys. Amen. Amen. All right. You know I compare 9 and 11 all the time. I just want you guys to know that remember last week, if you were here, we did some math and you guys failed. 11 was on it. So like I said, I think all the Lowell students go to 11 because they were on it. But, well, I don't know about you, but I'm a little interested. I'm a little torn right now. I'm both sad that the summer is over, but I'm also excited about the fall. And as I reflect on my summer, one of the things I'm kind of sad about is Missy and I, my wife, are long done planning any summer vacations, and now we're already looking at our calendar. We're planning things for the fall and even for the winter. And I don't know about you again, but for us, like planning a vacation, one that we'll actually enjoy, is like exhausting for us, at least for me. Like first, so we have, there's 3 kids and 2 of us, there's 5 of us. So first we have to find time that works for everyone. I have a son in college and daughter in high school, a son in middle school. None of their spring breaks are the same, so it's always difficult. Then we have to find a place that actually we want to go to, one that we hope everyone will enjoy, and everyone has opinions about that. And then we have to figure out a budget and set aside money and go, okay, can we afford to do that? That sounds cool. And so besides thinking about what we can do or how much we're willing to spend, or really we're asking the question, like, is this adventure worth it for us? Is it worth it? So for my family this past summer, months ago, what started with Missy and I planning an amazing, all-inclusive trip to Hawaii became a week of me teaching at a family camp on Catalina Island without 2 of our 3 kids. Not really what we had hoped for. But before you feel sorry for me, don't worry, we're making up for it in November and going to Hawaii, because we're like, that's it. That was not the summer we thought. But I say that because, you know what? Like, planning for a vacation is so much similar to how we think about and plan for our lives, isn't it? Like, all of us are constantly weighing and measuring how we want to spend our time, how we want to spend our money, how we want to spend our energy and any other resources, because we don't want to waste any of those precious things. And so how we spend our money is really, I think, a reflection of what we think is worthy of our time or our energy. And so we don't want to waste our time. We don't want to waste our energy, because when we do that, watch this, we're actually wasting our lives. And I would think that most of us don't want to waste our lives. And so the question is, how do we spend our lives without wasting them? What's worthy of our investment of our time or our energy or our money? I really believe this is such an important question that all of us should be asking, especially as we kick off the fall. I was thinking about like my own kids, for example. So my daughter is a junior at the best school in the city, Archbishop Reardon, and is taking several difficult AP classes. And she's already spent, it's only a couple weeks in, she's already spent hours studying. How will she know if that was a worthy investment of her time or her energy? My oldest son, Levi, through the summer took a 6-week program where he studied abroad in London and studied advertising and marketing and met with different advertising firms. And so for 6 weeks, he took classes, met with ad agencies, and did it with a group of people he didn't know in a huge city, and did it all alone. And honestly, how does he know if all that time and all that effort and all of my money was worth it? And these are questions we're all asking ourselves, aren't we? Is this company that I'm slaving for, is this business that I'm killing myself to run, is it worth all the energy and all the time that I'm putting into it? Or some of you are thinking like, gosh, is this house that I've worked so hard to buy and improve, is it worth the investment? Or is this retirement account that I'm carefully padding and putting away, sacrificing other things, is it really worth the sacrifice? Or are these studies worth the sacrifice? Now, some of us, if you're really honest with yourself, you just avoid questions like these. Because you know that if you slow down enough and ask these harder questions, it actually might reveal an emptiness at the core of your life. So some of you just stay busy and just stay focused, and you just avoid the hard questions, and you just say, hey, let pastors and philosophers figure those things out. Well, I want to look today at just 2 verses. Psalm 127, it's a book of poetry right smack dab in the middle of the Bible, was written actually by a very thoughtful and a very reflective man, a guy named King Solomon, one of the greatest Jewish kings who ever lived. And in Psalm 127, Solomon, I think, is reflecting on this very question. On this question of how we can spend our life without wasting it. And in this psalm, Solomon kind of holds our hand in this process of reflection, and he helps us to know and see what kind of life is really worth living. And so if you have a Bible, and the words will be on the screen, let's look at this basic principle that Solomon lays down. In Psalm 127, listen to what he writes. He says, unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat. Let me stop right there. And so what Solomon does here is he tells us that there are certain things that we do, activities we do every day that are actually in vain. That word vain is an interesting word. It's hebel in the Hebrew language. It means vanity. It means a waste of time. It means a waste of our energy. It's foolishness. It's not worth any of our investment of our time, our money, or our resources. So Solomon, what he's doing here is he's arguing that anything that we do, anything we spend our lives on apart from God's involvement in them is a total waste of time. And he zeroes in on a few things. And what he's saying is simply this, that the value of our work, the value really of our lives depends on God's work in our lives, God's work in us. And actually Solomon gets very specific, and he gives us 3 illustrations, 3 activities, things that we all are trying to do, which, watch me here, in and apart from themselves, they're not bad, they're not sinful, they're not, but he's saying apart from God being involved in them, they're vanity. They're a waste of your time. They're useless. And here's the first activity. He says building a house apart from God's involvement is a waste. Now, let's just pretend for a moment, because I know many of us living in the Bay Area, very few people that I know actually build a house from the ground up. So let's all go and pretend we're living in Arkansas right now, right? And let's pretend that our neighbors are building homes. Like, we remodel homes. We don't build new homes. But when you think about it this way, like when we build a house, what are we trying to build? At a most basic level, a house provides shelter for us. A house provides comfort and security for our family, whether you rent or you own. But if you own, it can become much different than that and much more than that. For example, we can build a house for the purpose of, boosting our own ego and pride because it's in the best neighborhood with the best schools. Or we can build a house with all the bells and whistles to kind of show it off and have friends come over and go, ooh, ooh, ooh. Or we can build a house because honestly, we're hoping that hopefully it will fund our future retirement. But Solomon says, be careful. Building a house, building a life apart from God's involvement is a total waste of time. This hit really home for me recently, very interesting. Close to the neighborhood that we live in, there was a house that was placed on the market. And like many of you, I follow all that. And, ooh, how much is it going to go for? But it was like gone in a matter of weeks. And I was like, oh, who's going to move in? Every time I drove past it, I'd look. And I'm like, for weeks and weeks, it just sat. And I'm like, dude, who has the money to buy a house and not move into it? Crazy. And then it sat. And then one day I drove past, and you know what happened to the house? Gone, ripped down, taken to the dumps. And I was like, OMG, who has the money to buy a house, rip down, and build a new one? And that's exactly what they did. And this new house now is beautiful, complete with Tesla roof tiles. Unbelievable. And again, nothing wrong with that. But I thought about, and I didn't know the people living in the house, but I thought about, wow, I wonder about the family that lives in that home for decades. I thought about, all the trips to Ace Hardware, all the remodeling projects, the thousands of times that the lawn was mowed or the plants were watered, and it's gone now, and now there's this brand new house. And I thought, wow, unless God was somehow involved in that house, and maybe he was, I didn't know them, but if he was not, all that time and all that energy and all the arguments and all those trips was just a waste, according to King Solomon. And then he gives us another example. He says, building a house isn't the only thing that's a waste. He says, guarding a city is a waste if God's not in it. Now let's go back to these ancient days, right? In Solomon's day, if a city wasn't guarded with a wall or guards, it was easy prey for bandits and invaders, because the issue was the issue of security for a city. And I thought about even today, so many of us, and myself included, we're concerned about our security, and it's a very real issue, isn't it? And so we've heightened security at the airports. We've heightened security at our schools. We've heightened security at public places. Where was I at recently? I forget where it was, but there was it was at a Walmart out in the valley, and there was I was like, what's going on here? Because the two people out front looked like they were in the military with machine guns, and I'm like, dude, what's going on here? It's like, he's like, oh, we just watch it, and I'm like, Walmart? What's people gonna run out with deodorant? What's going on here? But I felt a little more safe, right? I'm like, oh, great, high five, don't shoot me. Some of us, we've decided to take our kids out of the public schools and to put them into a place or a school where we think they'll be more safe. Or some of us are working hard to pass gun control laws, while others of us are going, forget that, I'm just going to keep a gun on my nightstand at night, or whatever. But Solomon is warning us here. He's saying without the Lord's involvement in a city, all of our efforts are in vain. Do I really need to tell us or you, I don't think I do, that nowhere is safe any longer, and it probably never was. It's crazy. And then Solomon gives us one more illustration. Honestly, it's almost as if he's lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's almost as if he knows about soaring rents and soaring gas prices and how unbelievable expensive it is to buy delicious ribeye steaks now. It's unbelievable. And he knows how we can just be almost consumed with making a living. He calls it rising up early and going to bed late. Now, hear me. There's nothing wrong with hard work. There's nothing wrong with sweat equity or anything like that. But there's a kind of work that's done in the Bay Area especially that totally ignores God's involvement in our work. There's an attitude in the Bay Area that says, it all depends on me. I'm smart enough. I deserve this. I've worked hard enough. I get up early. I go to bed late because I can do it. I earned this. It's mine. Don't you dare tell me what to do with anything I've earned. And at the end of the day, there might be some relief because, our bank accounts are a little fuller than they used to be, but there's no gratitude. There's no acknowledgement that God has blessed us. None of that. It's because of me is what we say. And so Solomon says, if you work that way, if you think that way, if you're striving to make a living apart from God's involvement, he said, actually, you're wasting your time, because even work that is done apart from God, Solomon says, is total vanity. So that's the problem. That's what he's trying to address. That's the bad news. But Solomon says something else now. Something that is so powerful if we get this today. Something I think that can change the way we think and change the way we live. Something that I believe can give us the freedom and the relief that we desperately desire. And he says it at one lonely little line at the end of verse 2. And this is the verse that's been deeply speaking to me. Psalm 127 verse 2 says this, and there's 3 different ways to translate it. I'm going to walk you through them all. He says first, for he, that's God, grants sleep to those he loves. I've read that verse 100 times and never thought there was a different translation because I hadn't studied it. Well, now I've studied it. And actually, other translations put it this way, for he gives to his beloved even in his sleep. Matter of fact, if you're on the YouVersion app, and actually even in my Bible, there's a little footnote. And in that footnote, when you look down, my footnote says, for while they sleep, he provides for those he loves. So what is it? Does God give sleep to those he loves? I wouldn't argue with that. I love sleeping, you know. Or does God give and bless and provide for us even while we sleep? And I think that's a better translation. And here's why. Because Solomon, I think, is reflecting on his own life right now. And I think that he's reflecting on even his own experience with God, what God did while he was sleeping when he was young. How do I know that? Because the word translated, those he loves or beloved, is the Hebrew word yadid. Say that with me, yadid. So when Solomon was born, watch this, in 2 Samuel says this, the Lord loved him. And because the Lord loved him, he sent word through Nathan the prophet to name him Jedediah. And the name Jedediah means the Yadid of Yahweh, or the beloved of the Lord. So as God's beloved, something had been given to Solomon when he was sleeping. And if you know the Old Testament, if you know the story of Solomon's life, one day Solomon was asleep and God came to him in a dream. And God said, hey, Solomon, whatever you want, anything in the world, I will give it to you. So what is it that you want? And what does Solomon ask for? Solomon asked for wisdom. And God blessed Solomon, and Solomon became the wisest and then richest man who had ever lived. So God's best gift to Solomon, the one thing that changed the trajectory of his life forever, the one thing that blessed the people of God for decades, was given to Solomon, his Yadid, his beloved, while he was sleeping. And here's the powerful thing, you guys. If you know Jesus, if you have a relationship with Jesus Christ, he calls you the Yadid of the Lord, the beloved of the Lord. Actually, the Apostle Paul, when he was writing to this church in Colossae, that's exactly what he says. He says, those who have been chosen by God, holy and Yadid, beloved. So it's no mistake that our salvation in Christ comes not as a result of our hard work or our hard effort. It comes as a result of God's grace. In a sense, it comes while we are sleeping. And so here's the truth. Here's the truth that I want to sink deep into our hearts today. When God is in our work, he provides for us. He blesses us, even while we are snoring or sleeping. So do you see what he's saying here? Do you see Solomon's point now? He's saying, hey, you can build a home. You can try to live and make your life secure and build a fence and move to Arkansas. You can work your tail off. But if God's not in any of those things, if you're doing it apart from him, it's vain, it's wasted. You're wasting your life. No one will remember you after you're dead. But if you're a person who knows Jesus, who trusts Jesus, if you are someone who is beloved of the Lord, not only will your work be blessed, but he will do even more than you ask and even more than you imagined. He will bless you. He will provide for you even while you are sleeping. Who am I preaching to today? Anybody in this room? Awesome. All online, I bet, for sure. But think about it. Sleep is a picture of our total weakness, of our total inactivity. Even the most powerful men and women in the world have to curl up like a little baby and suck their thumbs at night. But you know what the scriptures say about God? He never sleeps. He never slumbers. See, Solomon is reminding us that our work isn't everything, that building our homes isn't everything, that trying to live a safe and secure life is not everything. He's telling us that some of the greatest things God wants to do in your life and in my life comes in the midst of our inactivity. In the midst of us sleeping, where we're not doing anything to earn it or receive it. So yes, you need to work. I'm not saying quit your jobs. Please don't quit your jobs. But realize that God's work is more important than your work. Realize that God's house is more important than your house. Because when God is in our work, He blesses us. He provides for us even while we are sleeping. And you know what? Jesus said something very similar, didn't He? He told this story. He told this parable. And listen to what He said. He says, this is what the kingdom of God is like. A man scatters seeds on the ground, and night and day, whether he what? Whether he sleeps or gets up, the seed sprouts and grows, though he does not know how. Do you see the point? Jesus is saying that the kingdom of God, what God is doing, is growing despite our activity. The kingdom of God is growing without New North Church. The kingdom of God is growing because God is working and He's doing things without the help of any of us. And so the question I've had is, well, gosh, how do you know that God is in your work? How do you know if God is in your home? How do you know if God is in all the things that you're doing? And that's harder to answer. This is easier to answer. How do you know when God isn't in your work? And that's easier for me to answer. How do I know when God's not in our work? There's obvious signs. Let me give you a few. Irritation. You become very irritable. Worry. You worry. Anxiety. Frustration. How do you know when God's not in your work? Doors are not opening, but you are, boom, kicking them down anyway. And so, well, I'll do it, God. When God's not in your work, you're saying things you wish you didn't say. When God's not in your work, you're cheating and cutting corners. You know you shouldn't cheat or cut. When God is not in your work, right, the truth gets shaded because, you're deciding that the ends justify the means. Like, God understands. When God's not in your work, your priorities in your life become compromised and other priorities are more important to you. Anyone ever been there when God's not in your work? Yeah, only the honest people. Absolutely, man, I've been there. But in contrast to this way of life, there's a beautiful picture actually also in the Old Testament. Let me just read this verse. This is a great verse. It says, let the Yadid, the beloved of the Lord, rest secure in Him, for he or she shields him all day long, and the one whom the Lord loves rests between His shoulders. Isn't that a great picture? It's a picture of the beloved of the Lord who are resting in between the shoulders of God. She or he rests even as they work because they know God is working. She knows that God is carrying her along even though she can't move forward. I was thinking about it this way. When my children were really small, and they're not small any longer, we'd go on long walks or hikes, and you know what would happen, dads, you know this. They would say, oh, pick me up, Dad. And I pick them up, and then they always wanted to go even higher on piggyback, right? And they would lounge over, and I'm like, oh, dude. And then, but I was trying to act like I was stronger, and so I'd carry them along for a while and until my shoulders were killing me. But every now and then, my kids would fall asleep on my shoulders. And then they got heavier, because one time, one of my kids even peed on me while they were sleeping on my shoulders. I won't tell you who, but it's my favorite daughter. And anyway, I forget how old she was. And here's the interesting thing about piggyback rides is even though they would fall asleep or even though they weren't working, they would make progress because they were on my back. And you know what? That's exactly what God does in our lives. Whether we're awake or whether we're asleep, whether we're working hard or whether we're resting, God says we can rest between and on his shoulders because he promises to carry us. And that's the posture I want for my life and your life and our church. See, the value of our work, what we're trying to build here at New North, what you're trying to build in your life, depends on God's involvement. If God's not in it, we can work our bodies right into the grave and have nothing of lasting value to show for it. But if God is in it, man, we can sleep like babies and wake up to find ourselves being carried far beyond where we could go ourselves. So I thought about my own life. I'm embarrassed to say how I can do a lot in my own power and in my own strength without the Holy Spirit. I often think I'm smart enough or experienced enough to live the Christian life on my own. I even think I'm smart enough or wise enough to be a good husband or a good father on my own. But what happens is when I live that way, I'll eventually fall flat on my face, crying out to God because there's so many things in life I cannot do. So many things I can't do to help my wife or my kids or myself or even my church. So I want this to be a year for me where I trust God to provide for me even while I sleep. I think about our church, and I'm ashamed to say there's a long list of sermons and events and programs and initiatives where we thought God was in it, and he might have been, but it didn't feel like it. I think about our own vision statement, right? This big vision statement, but if God is not in it, hear me and hear our elders and our staff. We don't want to move forward, but we believe he is in it. And maybe, who knows, he may change it. I think about very specifically our many, many failed attempts to secure a permanent home for New North Church. Trust me, we have been trying our best. But for whatever reasons, and I don't know why, God has not yet provided a permanent home that we own. But we believe he will do it, and it will be miraculous. And it's not going to be a result of our own efforts or our own wisdom. It's going to happen one day when we wake up and we go, oh, wow. Why? Because we'll see that it came from God, and we won't pat ourselves on the back. We will fall down on our faces and worship and say, thank you, Jesus. So that's my heart and prayer for New North. That's my heart and prayer for my life, that we will trust God. We will trust his provision for us even while we sleep. What about you, though? I'm going to invite the worship team up, and I just want you to consider your own life. What area of your life, what relationship, what thing do you need to trust God more deeply? I talk to a lot of you. I know some of you sleep terribly at night. I know some of you stay up late at night working or worrying or all of the above. And I wonder, as we kick off the fall, if this is going to be a moment for us to give those things over to the Lord again and say, God, take it. I surrender again. I give this relationship to you. I give my prodigal son or daughter to you. I give this job that I can't stand to you. Whatever it is, that we give it over to him and trust that he is working even while we are sleeping. So we're going to do that. And we're going to sing a great song called Waymaker. And the reason why Tim picked this song, because there's a great line that if you know the song, it's so great. It says, even when I don't see it, you're working. That you're making a way. That you're doing something, even when I don't see it, even when I'd like to add my own line, even when I am sleeping, you're working. You never stop. You never stop working. So let's stand, and we're going to worship. And I just want to encourage you, whatever it is in your heart, whatever it is that's on your mind, whatever it is that's keeping you up at night, making you restless, making you worrying, making you anxious, let's give that over to God and worship. And I'll come back up and we'll pray together to close this out.